I'm Mary. My husband Ted and I will soon be celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary. Despite our struggles to conceive a child, Ted has always encouraged me by saying, because we don't have children, we can enjoy various things together. Let's have fun together. When our days of coincide, we like to go on hot spring trips as we both enjoy traveling. Even though we didn't have children, we enjoyed our married life. I believed that our days of happiness would last forever, until that day. I work in an office at a nursing home. That day, like always, I was working from the morning. During work, I was thinking about making fried noodle with cabbage and bean sprouts for that night. That's when it happened. Mary! Suddenly, I was called by the director in a loud voice. Thinking I made some mistake at the response of the director's call. Yes, I immediately replied, but I couldn't help but feel tensed. As I was heading towards him, he, looking panicked, ran towards me. It's terrible! Your husband! What happened? Your husband collapsed at his workplace. You shouldn't work anymore, and go to the hospital right now. I hurriedly got in my car and headed for the hospital. While driving, my heart was pounding continuously. I said to him, "See you later," and this morning as usual, I was driving in tears, pleading, "Please be safe, please." The distance to the hospital, which was only 15 minutes away, felt incredibly long for some reason. Upon arriving at the hospital, I ran to the reception desk. I was led to the designated treatment room. Ted! Even if I kept shouting, my voice didn't reach him. It was already too late. In the silent treatment room, only the sound of the equipment echoed. Looking at the faces of the doctors and nurses, I could tell what had happened. The doctor came to me and said, "You're his wife, aren't you?" "I'm sorry, but your husband's condition is..." Upon hearing this, I fell to the floor crying. The cause of death was reported to be a myocardial infarction. There might have been more explanations, but I couldn't hear anything else. The thought of never seeing my husband again, and never being able to say, "See you later." We promised to be together forever, but he is gone before me. This might be a dream, trying to escape from reality. I was convinced that he must be playing a prank on me. That's what I thought. And then I collapsed. When I woke up, I was in the hospital room, and my worried parents were by my side. "Mary, are you all right?" My mom gently held my hand. "Why am I in the hospital?" "That's right. I heard my husband had collapsed. Where is he?" While my consciousness was still hazy, I tracked back the memories before I collapsed and cried. My mother held me, tears in her eyes. I was crying out loud. I wonder how much time has passed. I just kept crying and thought I had to accept the reality. He's not coming back. He passed away. I have to properly send him off for the last time. Otherwise, I won't be able to face him. I bit my lip and vowed not to cry anymore. My in-laws took care of the funeral arrangements. My mother-in-law was as worn out as I was, and it seemed like my father-in-law took care of most things. God is so unreasonable to take him away so suddenly. My friends who came to offer incense said that with tears. "Mary, cry when you need to." They encouraged me. There are people who cared for me and said kind words. But all I could reply was, "Thank you for your concern." I wanted to cry without worrying about being seen, but I held back, telling myself that now was not the time. As a wife and the chief mourner, I thought I should properly greet my husband's friends and coworkers, and I had decided to properly say my last goodbye to him. So I made a promise to myself not to cry today. As I was greeting the attendees, an unknown woman appeared. She was petite and very beautiful. I thought she must be from my husband's company, so I approached her to say hello. "Excuse me, are you a coworker of my husband?" "Yes, I'm a coworker of your husband." "I see. My husband was under your care during his lifetime." She interrupted my greeting and started to talk. "Sorry for the interruption, but I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant with his child. I'm already 4 months along." "Huh? What do you mean?" I was unable to understand what she just said, and I was confused. Seeing my confused look, she continued as follows, laughing with her nose. "There's his baby in my belly. Do you understand this situation, Mrs.? I'm sorry, but I don't quite understand what you're saying," I replied, even though I was confused. "Are you from my son's company? Thank you for coming today." My father-in-law noticed something strange and came to thank her. "Oh, are you Mr. Kawaguchi's father? That's good. I have your son's baby in my belly." I came to explain this while offering incense, she speaking loudly. Her voice echoed in the quiet hall, causing a stir. My father-in-law was upset by her crazy statement and said, "What are you talking about? We're in the middle of my son's funeral." There were some people who thought she was talking nonsense. "I came because I thought I could meet everyone here. There really is his baby in my belly. So I should have the right to inherit the estate, right?" Everyone was shocked and speechless at the unexpected announcement. "We're in the middle of a funeral right now. It's not the time to talk about inheritance. Stop it. What's your intention?" My husband's boss intervened when he heard the commotion. "Is this house part of the inheritance too? After all, my unborn baby also has a right to inherit." She continued to talk without remorse. Even when she was told to stop by the boss, she kept making a fuss. Finally, she said something we didn't expect. "We are deeply in love. He said he wanted to divorce and be with me. He asked me to wait for a while until the divorce. The baby in my belly is the proof of our love." She started to shout so that everyone could hear. My mother-in-law noticed the commotion and came. "What is this commotion about?" The woman approached her, rubbing her belly. "The only grandchild your daughter-in-law couldn't have is in my belly. Be happy, will you?" with smiling. My mother-in-law was also surprised and fell silent. Seeing this, I started to think. I wondered if my in-laws, who wanted to see their grandchild, might be swayed by the woman's words. But my father-in-law yelled at her with anger. "We're in the middle of a funeral. Consider the feelings of those around you. Get out of here right now." He was filled with anger. What did you say?" She was startled by the father-in-law's yell. It seemed she thought that if she said she had a grandchild in her belly, she would be more acceptable than me, who could not have children. And then she continued to yell. "Why are you yelling? You don't need a daughter-in-law like this, do you? Isn't it worthless if she can't even have your grandchild? Do you think you're a suitable one? It's all your fault." She tried to grab hold of me. However, she was quickly restrained by the people around and was unable to move. "Stop it! I'm pregnant. Let go! Don't touch me," my mother-in-law said. "Is the baby real my son's? If so, we need to divide inheritance." "That's right. Oh, mother, you're quick to understand." She brightened her eyes. "But in order to inherit, we need a DNA test. With our son gone, we don't have any other way to confirm. Are you okay with that? Is the child really my son's?" My mother-in-law asked her with a smile, saying, "We don't need a DNA test. We are truly in love." She was shaking. "You're shaking. Are you all right? Is something wrong?" My mother-in-law drew near her with a cold look. The woman's face began to turn red. My mother-in-law's face changed, and she said forcefully, "You've caused a commotion during the funeral. Do you understand what happens if it turns out the baby is not my son's?" At the mother-in-law's strong words, the woman fell silent and finally began to cry. "But we're in love, truly." She still keeps saying crying. "Enough. Crying won't help. My son could never have loved someone like you. I know how much he loved his wife." While hugging my shoulders, my mother-in-law rejected the woman's words. She continued, "She's your subordinate, right? We want to send our son off properly. Can you please take her away?" My husband's boss forcibly took the woman away. The funeral proceeded as planned and ended safely. When the cremation was done and the bones were put in place, I finally felt that my husband was no longer in this world. I cried alone, looking at the photos of my husband, holding back the feelings I had been keeping for a long time. Later, my husband's boss visited my house to apologize again about the woman. From what I heard, it seemed she had a one-sided affection for my husband. Ignoring the eyes of others, she firstly pursued my husband. She sat next to him at drink parties, and her approaches to my husband were extremely aggressive. However, my husband never responded to her. There seems to have been warnings to her from his boss and others, but she didn't listen, and everyone eventually gave up. The boss bowed his head and apologized for the company not being able to manage the employee. I told him that the company doesn't need to apologize, and that it's all the woman's fault. I also told him that I filed a claim for damages against her for defamation. I emphasized that it is an unforgivable act to defile my last farewell with my husband. It seemed that the boss understood my feelings, and after that, we talked about my memories with my husband. His boss, tears welling up in his eyes, said, "He was always talking about you. He may not remember himself, but when he got drunk, he'd immediately start bragging about his beloved wife. You're really lucky to be loved so much." No. I feel like I was given a husband who is too good for me, I replied, my voice trembling. Later on, my mother-in-law told me that the woman was indeed pregnant. However, it seems that the baby was not my husband's. She had relationships with various men and admitted to purposefully getting pregnant. She thought that if she created a commotion claiming that the child was my husband's, we would surely divorce. So apparently she was saying she had wanted to take revenge on my husband and me, who never gave her any attention. And she didn't even know who the real father of the baby in her belly was. Her actions became known in the company, and she ended up having to resign. As a result of her own action, she became jobless and was then sued by me for damages. But I thought that was her just deserts. After the boss left, my mother-in-law spoke to me. Actually, there was one time when we said we wanted our grandchild that was mad at us. He told us never to mention it to you, Mary. He even said he'd break off ties with us if we did. Even if he couldn't have a child, if he had you, that was enough for him. My in-laws understood from their conversation with Ted that even if they didn't have a child, if they were happy, that was enough. She continued to talk. At that time, I really felt he loved you. That's why she could firmly say he was not cheating at that moment. I really love you. You're like a real daughter to me. So, because you're still young, I want you to remarry and be happy. But I shook my head with a smile. I have only one husband, now and forever. She burst into tears. I hugged her and cried with her. It's been several years since then, but I continue to think about my husband. Even now, there are times when I can't understand why he left me alone in this world. I often feel there is no point in living in a world without my husband, but I have to go on living. My husband was an only child, so I'm sure my in-laws are lonely because he's gone. I've decided in my heart that I want to take care of them in place of my husband. Today's my in-laws' 14th wedding anniversary. I prepared a cake for them as a surprise and presented it to them. I also gave them a trip as a gift, hoping they would enjoy spending time together. They are very pleased. And again, I expressed my gratitude to them for giving birth to my husband.